What do the women who, without trying, change everything around them have in common? It's not their looks, nor their voice, nor even what they do. It's something unseen but felt, an energy that dwells deep within, a wisdom not taught but inherited. This video is a call to you, woman who has always sensed there is something more, something that doesn't quite fit with what you've been told. Today we will walk together a path that speaks of the feminine soul, its innate spiritual power, and its direct connection to the divine, not from religion, but from essence. Feminine spirituality is much more than intuition or sensitivity. It is a silent force that holds a world, the light that guides even in the shadows. Jacobo Grinberg, Mexican neuroscientist and mystic, dedicated his life to exploring the quantum field and how human perception can expand beyond the visible. He studied not only the brain but consciousness itself, and he discovered many women were already connected unknowingly to that field of infinite possibilities. Their testimonies, rituals, and experiences reveal secret science is only beginning to understand. On this journey, we will reveal 7 spiritual secrets known only by those women touched by divinity. Secrets that can't be explained, only felt. And once you discover them, there's no going back. If you ever felt there's something special about you, stay. Subscribe, like, and activate the bell because this journey is only for awakened women. Let's begin. Since time immemorial, women have been silent bearers of ancestral wisdom rarely written down, but transmitted through glances, gestures, and silences. In every culture, every corner of the planet, there's a figure of the wise woman, the healer, the one who knows the language of plants, the rhythms of the moon, and the secrets of the body. This transmission does not happen in universities or temples, but in kitchens, shared beds, walks through the countryside, motherly embraces, lullabies, and grandmother's whispers. The feminine spiritual lineage is an invisible fabric connecting women beyond time and space, beyond language and beliefs. It is a living network that endures even when official history tries to erase or minimize it. Jacobo Grinberg, in his studies on the neural field and expanded perception, found something fascinating. Women, especially those connected to traditional or spiritual practices, showed a much greater ease to tune into what he called the quantum or synergic field. According to his research, this field is an energetic matrix that contains everything, imperceptible to common senses, but accessible through certain states of consciousness. Grinberg argued that some people have a natural sensitivity to this connection, and many of them were women. This was no coincidence. The female neurological structure, combined with the emotional history of maternal lineage, seems to act as a receptive channel of information beyond the rational. This phenomenon is not only biological or genetic, but an energetic and spiritual inheritance. Many women feel from childhood that something is different in them. They intuit what is about to happen. They anticipate events. They feel others' pain as their own. They have vivid dreams. They know when someone lies, even if no one else notices. And often they don't understand why. They don't realize they are part of a legacy dating back centuries, where women, amidst imposed silence, develop their inner power through intuition, empathy, connection with nature, and the ability to create life not only from the body but from the soul. This feminine spiritual lineage manifests through archetypes recognized by deep psychology and spiritual traditions for generations. The medicine woman, for example, knows plants, body cycles, and emotions. She needs no title or recognition because her wisdom comes from observation, instinct, and life experience. The protector is the one who sustains, cares, and often sets invisible boundaries to keep her loved ones safe. She can be a mother, sister, community leader, or grandmother. And the visionary is the one who sees beyond, who dreams, who senses the subtle movements of the collective soul, who understands symbols and transforms them into guidance for other women. These archetypes, although symbolic, reside in every woman in varying proportions and unique ways of manifestation. They are not molds, but living memories activated by experience and level of consciousness. Grinberg understood that the quantum field was not only a universal energetic structure, but also a shared information network. The feminine, due to its perceptive capacity, has a natural affinity with this network. The more connected a woman is to her history, her body, and her sensitivity, the greater her ability to read that network, to navigate it naturally. This does not mean men cannot do it, but in women, This ability often awakens spontaneously, especially when they feel in community, when they reconnect with other women who help them remember their essence. In women's circles, for example, emotional and energetic synchronization phenomena occur, documented by scientific studies but known for centuries by indigenous cultures. Menstrual synchronization, shared dreams, emotions transmitted without words, all this is part of the mystery of the feminine spiritual lineage. Moreover, the role of the feminine in the expansion of consciousness is key. When a woman awakens spiritually, she not only transforms her own life, but impacts everyone around her. Her energy, aligning with the field, begins to reorganize bonds, purify spaces, heal memories that do not belong only to her but to her entire family tree. Often, a woman begins a transformation process unaware that she is freeing her daughters, her sisters, even her ancestors. Her awakening is a collective act, even if it seems individual. That is why many traditions speak of women as portals of consciousness. They not only give birth to children, but also to realities, visions, new ways of understanding the world. And this is not just poetry or metaphor. Recent neuroscience studies have shown that the female brain has a special plasticity to adapt to deep internal changes. The connection between emotional and rational regions is denser, allowing complex experiences to be integrated more intuitively. Grinberg intuited this from his clinical observations, but now science confirms it. This ability is not weakness or excessive sensitivity, as women were made to believe for centuries, but a power. The power to feel deeply, to grasp the invisible, to transform what they touch from the subtle. The mystery of the feminine spiritual lineage needs no proof, because it reveals itself. It is in the gaze of a grandmother who knows without speaking, in the hand of a mother who caresses and soothes without saying a word, in the girl who asks why it rains when no one taught her. It is in the untold stories carried in the blood, in the songs not learned but remembered by the body, and above all, it is in the inner certainty that being a woman is not just a biological condition, but a profound spiritual mission. In many ancient cultures, women were not seen as secondary citizens nor as mere companions to male spiritual development, but as the axis around which the cycles of life, death, and rebirth revolved. In pre-patriarchal communities, the feminine was sacred not only for its ability to create physical life, but for its faculty to keep alive the energetic memory of the peoples. These women did not just bear children, they bore visions, sustained soul medicine, guided harvest times, interpreted collective dreams, kept the home fire burning both physically and symbolically. Priestesses, shamans, midwives, healers were fundamental pillars of spiritual and social balance. Their lineage was not individual, but communal, woven among many, resonating through song, touch, and nonverbal language. With the arrival of patriarchy and dominant rationality, that lineage was made invisible but not eliminated. Jacobo Grinberg maintained that consciousness is an expanding field that responds to stimuli beyond the immediate environment. This field, when it encounters a receptive channel unconditioned by logic, unfolds into multiple levels of perception. For him, the feminine represented one of those natural doors to quantum, not because women were better in a hierarchical sense, but because their inner structure was more aligned with subtlety. Feminine energy is cyclical, receptive, enveloping. It does not seek to dominate the field. It merges with it. And from that fusion, it accesses information that cannot be understood by those still disconnected from their deep self. Just as water takes the shape of the container that holds it, the spiritual woman takes the shape of the present moment, flowing with a silent wisdom that transforms without imposing. The most astonishing thing is that this spiritual lineage does not require belonging to any specific religion, culture, or tradition. It can awaken in any woman, at any moment of her life, often after a crisis, a loss, an illness, or a sudden mystical experience. It is as if life itself conspires to remind them who they are, and that memory activates in the most intimate places. In meditation, in childbirth, in a tear, in a solitary walk, in a conversation with another woman who is already awakened. Their recognition happens, the spark that says, I feel that too, I have lived that too, I know that without knowing how I know. There is no book that teaches it, no course that imparts it, because the feminine spiritual lineage reconnects through the soul, not through the intellect. Many times, this awakening is not easy. It involves removing layers of inherited pain, memories of submission, limiting beliefs about what a woman should be. It involves healing the history of those who came before, mothers who remained silent, grandmothers who suffered in silence, great-grandmothers who survive in a world that did not recognize their worth. Every woman who dares to heal her lineage today does it also for them, for all those who could not speak, for all those who hid their light, for all those who were burned, silenced, or locked away. And in that act, she not only frees herself, but also breaks ancestral chains that still affect her descendants. It is invisible work, but powerful, and it is deeply spiritual. What's interesting is that many women don't realize they are already doing this work. They don't need to identify as spiritual to be connected. It's enough to observe how they care, how they feel, how they sense things others don't see. It's enough to see their relationship with nature, with cycles, with symbols. In their everyday gestures lives the seed of the sacred. A woman who cooks with love, who sings while she cleans, who hugs without judgment, who accompanies in silence, is vibrating from the lineage. She is channeling an energy that heals, that brings order, that awakens. She doesn't need an altar. She is the altar. Her body, her presence, her way of being in the world is already a spiritual act. The mystery of the feminine lineage also manifests in the relationship between women. Unlike the competitive narrative often imposed by culture, when women connect from the heart, something happens that transcends all logic. They recognize each other. They mirror each other. They heal one another. A single glance is enough to understand. A phrase can awaken a dormant memory. A touch can restore the sense of belonging. And when this happens, each woman's field expands. As Grinberg said, shared consciousness becomes more powerful than individual consciousness. And in women's circles, that shared consciousness finds its highest expression. In those spaces, many women discover they are not alone, that what they felt as madness or exaggeration is, in truth, sensitivity, that their intuitions were real, that their dreams carried messages, that their body speaks, that their womb holds memories, that their tears cleanse old wounds, that their sexual energy is creative, that their pain has meaning, that their voice matters. It is in that rediscovery where true transformation begins. It's not about changing who they are, but about remembering who they have always been. And in that remembering, in that return to essence, is where the spiritual lineage is strengthened, renewed, and passed on. Grinberg intuited that within each person there is an inner field that can tune into the whole. In women, that field seems more active when emotional and spiritual connection with other women is allowed. Western science has yet to fully explain this phenomenon, but experience confirms it. When one woman awakens, she awakens many. Her light is not only for herself. It radiates, it inspires, it touches, and many times, without saying a word, it transforms everything around her. That is why, when we speak of the feminine spiritual lineage, we are not referring to a theory, but to a lived experience. It is not an idea to be studied, but a wisdom to be embodied. It is in the blood, in the skin, in the voice, in the silence, and above all, it is in the decision to remember. Because every time a woman says enough, when she heals, when she chooses herself, when she honors herself, she is rewriting history. She is healing backwards and planting forward. And in that act, she is part of a legacy much greater than herself. After understanding the mystery of the feminine spiritual lineage and its powerful connection to the quantum field, it is time to delve into the deeper secrets that only women blessed by the divine can recognize within themselves. The first of these secrets lives right at the center of their body, the womb. Far from being just a biological organ, the womb is, in many spiritual traditions and ancestral worldviews, a true energetic portal, a source of creation, a doorway to dimensions that transcend the physical. From the shamanic perspective, the womb represents the first altar. It is a space where life begins and where ideas, emotions, memories, and energies are also gestated. It does not matter whether a woman is given birth or not, whether she has a physical womb or has undergone a hysterectomy, because beyond the body there exists an energetic womb, a deep vibrational center that remains active. Many women don't know this, but that area of the body holds memories, traumas, unspoken desires, past relationships, family secrets, and even memories from other lives. That is why, in many cases, when beginning healing processes or spiritual awakenings, women experience unexplained lower belly pain, intense emotional shifts, or symbolic dreams related to that part of the body. The womb speaks. The womb holds. And when it is consciously listened to, it becomes a sacred ally. Jacobo Grinberg extensively explored the effects that certain organs and energetic points have on expanded perception. Although his research focused on neurology and the synergetic field, he discovered that the body as a whole functions like an antenna capable of receiving and emitting quantum information. Within this system, the womb behaves like a highly sensitive node. Grinberg was amazed to observe how, in sessions with women who practiced deep meditation or shamanic techniques, similar patterns emerged. They felt energy moving from the womb to other parts of the body or had clear visions linked to that space. He didn't call it the energetic womb, but he recognized that there was a central point in the female body from which a powerful connection to the field was activated. Many women have felt a knot in their belly when they are sad, scared, or confused. Some describe butterflies fluttering for no apparent reason. Others speak of a deep emptiness, of a silent pain that does not correspond to any specific medical condition. This phenomenon is not a coincidence. The womb, as an energetic receptor, responds to life events, emotions, and emotional and sexual bonds. Every significant experience, especially if it was not processed with love and awareness, leaves a trace. Emotionless sexual encounters, abortions, pregnancy losses, abuse, breakups, grief, all are recorded there as cellular memory. And the most fascinating thing is that gifts, visions, rituals, prayers, and acts of conscious creation are stored there too. The womb does not judge. It simply holds and reflects. Ancient cultures understood this well. In Egypt, womb energy was considered a sacred channel of connection with the gods. In many Native American traditions, women were seen as natural mediums between heaven and earth precisely because of their ability to create life from that space. In India, the lower chakras are associated with the root of creative energy, and the second chakra, the sacral one, linked to the womb, is considered a vortex of creativity, sensuality, and power. In Africa, tribal songs and dances focus on activating the belly as a method to awaken visions. And in European occult texts, the womb is referred to as the alchemical cauldron, where matter is transformed into spirit. All these views agree on one point. Within the female body exists a portal. But what does it mean that it is a portal? It means it is an energetic opening that allows exchange between worlds. Not only between the physical and the spiritual, but also between the personal and collective unconscious, between the past and the present, between what has been and what could still be. The womb as a portal allows for inward journeys, to touch unspoken memories, to understand pain from previous generations, and to channel ideas or messages from subtler planes. Many women who begin practicing womb-focused meditation report profound mystical experiences, visions of their female ancestors, encounters with beings of light, sensations of sacred fire, spontaneous body movements, cry without reason, immediate emotional release. All of this is part of the cleansing and reactivation process of a center that has been silenced for centuries. Grinberg, in his studies on perception, intuited that bodies were more than anatomical structures. He said they were maps, living constellations of energy and memory. And within that map, the womb was one of the most enigmatic coordinates. Even though science still lacks a language to name it, the direct experience of thousands of women who have gone through womb awakening confirms that a forgotten power resides there, a power that, once remembered, completely transforms the spiritual life of the one who activates it. And it's not just about understanding the womb as a physiological organ, but about recognizing it as a seat of consciousness. That womb consciousness does not respond to the logic of rational thought. It cannot be dominated nor fully understood. It is more of an intuitive, circular, rhythmic intelligence. It speaks through symbols, emotions, and sensations, and it communicates when it finds silence, surrender, and openness. That is why so many women who begin a spiritual path discover that before understanding the universe, they need to understand their own body, not as an obstacle, but as a temple, not as a prison, but as an oracle. And on that path, the womb presents itself as the first door, the starting point for everything else. One of the reasons why many women experience intense menstrual discomfort or chronic gynecological problems is precisely due to the accumulated energetic charge in that area. Medical treatments alone are not enough if the energetic aspect is not also addressed. In the feminine spiritual tradition, people speak of cleansing the womb as an act of deep liberation, not with guilt nor with fear, but with respect, tenderness, and awareness. Cleansing the womb means releasing stories that no longer belong to us, closing cycles, forgiving, giving thanks, and making space for new creation, not just of a child, but of a new version of ourselves. This process can begin in many ways. Some women start by ending relationships that no longer resonate with their soul. Others begin by talking with their mother and understanding their own feminine history. Some meditate by placing their hands over the lower belly and visualizing a light moving through it. Others do it by dancing, writing, crying, walking in nature. Every path is valid if it arises from authenticity, and in all of them, without exception, the result is the same. The woman reconnects with her center, with her fire, with her truth. When a woman begins to inhabit her womb with awareness, she reconnects with a part of herself that had been silenced or ignored. It is not about romanticizing pain or idealizing femininity, but about recognizing that a deep truth lives in that space. Women who have gone through womb reconnection processes often describe a feeling of coming home, of recovering something that was always there but had been buried under years of disconnection, external demands, or imposed beliefs. That return is powerful because it means embracing one's power from a place of depth, not of appearance. One of the most surprising discoveries on this path is that the womb can act as an inner compass. Many women report that by paying attention to their belly, they can clearly perceive whether a person, situation, or decision is good for them or not. It's like a natural radar that activates when listened to. It shows up as expansion or contraction, as heat or cold, as vibration or tension. And even if the environment tries to impose a different logic, that sensation ends up being the most accurate. This is because the womb doesn't reason, but perceives. It doesn't analyze, but it knows. Its intelligence is silent, but direct. That's why so many women say things like, "Something inside me was telling me no," referring to an intuition that manifested precisely there in the center of the body. In contexts where rational thinking is valued over intuition, this ability has often been repressed. Girls are taught to ignore their sensations, to distrust their emotions, to hide their natural cycles. They are forced to adapt to an external rhythm that has little to do with their body's own. The result is a progressive disconnection from the uterine center and, with it, a loss of internal direction. Many women grow up feeling they must please, be agreeable, given, even when everything inside them is screaming the opposite. Reconnecting with the womb means breaking that programming. It means trusting the body's wisdom again, inhabiting it with love and dignity. Jacobo Grinberg spoke of expanded perception as a state of consciousness where the boundaries between self and external dissolve. Through meditation, introspection, or certain shamanic practices, a person can access a dimension where everything is interconnected. In that state, the body ceases to be just matter and becomes a channel. The womb, as a feminine energy center, then becomes an active gateway to that perception. When a woman connects with her womb consciously, she often begins to have lucid dreams, repressed memories, clairvoyance, sensitivity to surrounding energies, or even experiences that science still cannot explain. This is not some unfounded mystical or esoteric idea. It is a direct experience that more and more women report when beginning their spiritual path through the body. A recurring phenomenon in this process is the emergence of uterine memories. Many women who have never done deep therapeutic work begin to remember situations, emotions, or traumas they had completely forgotten. In meditation sessions or energetic healing, images can arise from childhood, from their female ancestors, or from significant moments that shape their relationship with the feminine. These memories do not come to cause pain, but to be released. The womb, being a container, needs to empty in order to create. It cannot manifest new life if it is filled with unexpressed pain. That's why the work of reconnecting with the womb is also a process of emotional and energetic purification. In cultures that kept their traditions alive, there are specific rituals to support these processes. Herbal baths, healing songs, circular dances, womb massages, specific prayers, all focus on releasing what no longer serves and activating creative energy. Some practices focus on honoring the menstrual cycle, not as something uncomfortable or dirty, but as a sacred manifestation of cyclical power. During menstruation, a woman releases not only blood, but also energy, emotions, and information. It is a time of cleansing and renewal. Learning to live it consciously radically transforms a relationship with the body and the soul. But beyond external practices, the most important thing is the internal attitude. Listening to the womb requires humility, patience, and presence. It will not always speak in words. Sometimes it will be a whisper, a discomfort, a sudden tension. Sometimes it will be a creative impulse, a need to cry, an intense emotion that cannot be explained. All of this is part of the womb's language. Learning to read it, honor it, follow it, is an act of deep self-love. And when a woman aligns with her womb, she aligns with the source. Because the womb is not only a portal inward, it is also an antenna that connects to the divine. Many women discover on this path that the womb is also a space of spiritual creation. Not only children are born there, but also projects, ideas, visions, songs, businesses, healings. Every time a woman creates from the soul, she is giving birth to something through that center. It doesn't matter whether she writes, cooks, teaches, cares, paints, or guides others. If she does it from deep connection, she is manifesting from her energetic womb. And that is felt. The vibration of what is created from the womb is different. It has soul, it has purpose, it has coherence. That is why one of the most revolutionary acts a woman can do is to inhabit her body with awareness, to begin a dialogue with her womb, to listen and act accordingly. In a world that has tried to disconnect her from her inner power, returning to the womb is returning to the truth, not a learned truth, but a remembered one, a truth that needs no arguments because it is experienced, lived, manifested. And in that manifestation, not only the life of the one who lives it changes, but also the lives of those around her. This secret, the first of the 7 we will explore, is not new knowledge. It is ancient wisdom that dwells in the deepest part of the feminine soul. It has always been there, waiting to be remembered. And every woman who chooses to look within, who dares to feel, who honors her story, is activating an energy that can transform the world. Because a woman connected to her womb is not only stronger, she is freer, more creative, more compassionate, more wise. And when that energy expands, no system can shut it down. Have you ever felt an emptiness, a pain, or an unexplainable energy in your lower belly, as if something hidden lived there that even you can't describe? Share it in the comments. Your story, however intimate, may reflect that of many others. It is time to break the silence and heal. Comment with a red heart if you felt something inside you awaken as you listen to this. After exploring the womb as an energetic portal, we arrive at the second secret that distinguishes women connected to the divine source, their sacred intuition. That sixth sense which has so often been dismissed, misunderstood, or labeled as exaggeration is, in reality, one of the most powerful gifts a woman can walk with through this life. Intuition is not a spiritual luxury or a mere emotional hunch. It is a form of wisdom that emerges from the deepest part of the being, a fine, sensitive, expanded perception that allows us to see beyond the obvious and understand the invisible that sustains reality. Throughout history, women from all cultures have shown this ability to perceive what others do not see. From prophetesses and oracles to healers, visionaries, and spiritual leaders, the intuitive woman has been both revered and feared. Because whoever can read the invisible can also reveal uncomfortable truths. Today, many modern women still experience this sensitivity naturally, though they often don't understand it or know how to integrate it. They sense things, feel energies, pick up on emotions, foresee events. But since no one taught them to trust it, they end up doubting themselves or disconnecting from that channel. Jacobo Grinberg approached perception from a unique scientific spiritual perspective. Through his studies of the human brain, he formulated his theory of the synergic field, a quantum space of information that exists beyond the common senses. According to him, human beings have the ability to interact with this field through expanded consciousness. In his research with shamans, meditators, psychics, and highly sensitive individuals, he observed that there were active neurological structures that allowed access to this field. Surprisingly, in many women, These structures seem to respond with greater intensity, especially when they were in states of contemplation, inner silence, or deep emotional connection. Grinberg didn't call it feminine intuition, but he was describing exactly that. Sacred intuition in women is not only a biological capacity, though it is that too. It has a strong neurological component. Current neuroscientific studies have shown that the female brain has a denser network of interconnection between hemispheres, which allows it to process emotions, nonverbal language, and subtle cues in a more integrated way. That explains why many women detect mood shifts in their environment, know when someone is lying, or feel others' pain without being told. It's not magic, it's structural sensitivity. However, what makes this intuition sacred is that it doesn't only operate on the psychic level. It also functions on the spiritual plane. When a woman is spiritually awake, her intuition sharpens like a luminous antenna. She begins to receive signs, synchronicities, warning dreams, ideas arrive unannounced, sensations in the body that offer answers before questions are even formed. This information does not come from rational thought, but from a broader source, connected to the energetic field Grinberg spoke of. In other words, intuition is the way the consciousness of the universe whispers to a woman's ear. And when she dares to listen, her life takes a completely different path. Many women can recall moments when something told them not to take a certain road, not to trust someone, not to accept an offer, and later realize their perception had been right. Or, on the contrary, they remember moments when they ignored that inner voice and ended up in confusion, pain, or loss. This happens because intuition doesn't shout, doesn't impose, doesn't reason. It speaks softly. It is a gentle certainty that appears before the mind begins to analyze. That's why it requires presence, silence, and self-trust. And that is what is often lost in childhood. When we are taught to prioritize external, to obey without feeling, to doubt what the body and soul already know. The intuitive woman doesn't need proof. She needs permission. Permission to trust herself, to stop when something doesn't feel right, to say no without explanation, to change direction even when everything seems fine. That is the wisdom of the invisible, a wisdom that can't be seen, but is expressed, that isn't taught but remembered, that isn't measured but transforms. And that transformation begins when a woman chooses to listen. Grinberg was convinced that the universe is not a collection of separate objects, but a vibrational network in which everything is connected. This quantum view fits perfectly with what many women have felt since they were girls. That everything is interconnected, that emotions are invisible threads passing through bodies, that there are places that feel heavy or people who bring light. These popular expressions are much more than fleeting intuitions. They are direct manifestations of expanded perception, which, when cultivated consciously, becomes a gift for guiding oneself and others. A woman connected to her intuition is a lighthouse. She doesn't need to control. She needs to feel. She doesn't need to know everything. She needs to trust. And that kind of presence is healing. That's why many women, without formal training in therapy or spirituality, end up being the emotional support of their families, the anchor of their communities, or the soul of their friend groups. Their sensitivity allows them to offer comfort, wisdom, guidance. And even when it isn't acknowledged, their intuition holds up far more than they themselves imagine. The most beautiful thing about this ability is that it doesn't require belonging to any mystical school. It is present in the everyday. In the woman who knows her child is sad even if he says nothing. In the one who feels her partner is hiding a pain he cannot express. In the one who walks into a place and senses a tension in the air. In the one who looks at the sky and knows something is about to change. In the one who dreams in symbols that later become reality. In the one who receives a clear message while walking, bathing, or simply breathing. That is sacred intuition, the voice of the soul that speaks when a woman is in contact with herself. But this voice can only flourish if there is space for it. In a world full of noise, external opinions, and outside demands, intuition needs silence. It needs moments of pause, of disconnection from the surroundings to reconnect with the center. That's why many women rediscover their intuition when they begin to meditate, walk in nature, write in a journal, or breathe deeply. It's as if the soul says, "Thank you for listening. I have so much to say." And what it says is not noise, it is guidance. It is direction. It is clarity. What's most powerful is that by cultivating this inner listening, a woman begins to make decisions that are more aligned with her truth. She no longer acts out of fear, habit, or social pressure. She acts from inner certainty, from coherence between what she feels and what she does. And it shows. Her energy shifts. Her gaze brightens. Her life begins to flow, not because challenges disappear, but because now she knows how to move through them with grace and wisdom. When a woman fully trusts her intuition, she begins to live from a place very different from the usual. She stops acting to please, to fit in, or to meet others' expectations, and starts to follow the natural rhythm of her soul. That change of direction is reflected in every area of her life. The way she relates, chooses, expresses, and even heals becomes more authentic, deeper, more connected. Because intuition not only guides specific decisions, it is also an existential compass that points toward what truly matters. Many times, this inner wisdom is expressed through the body. Sudden physical sensations, changes in breathing patterns, quickened heartbeat, goosebumps, or a knot in the stomach are signs that remind us the body also intuits. There doesn't have to be an external trigger for intuition to activate. Sometimes, just walking into a place, looking at someone, or thinking about a decision is enough for the body to speak. The challenge is to be present enough to hear it, and brave enough to honor what it says, even if it doesn't have an immediate logical explanation. In a culture that overvalues reason, this attitude can seem reckless, but to someone who is awakened, it's simply inner coherence. Many women begin to reconnect with their intuition after a breakup, an illness, or a crisis that forces them to rethink everything. In those moments, what once felt certain begins to crumble, and the only thing that remains is that inner voice pointing the way. It doesn't always offer clear answers, but it does show the next step. It's like a lantern in the fog. It doesn't reveal the whole path, but gives enough light to move forward. That is the deepest function of intuition, to guide you across the threshold between the known and the new, between the old identity and the rebirth of the self. Jacobo Grinberg spoke about how the mind can be reconfigured when it opens to the quantum field. He explained that human perception is shaped by a neural mesh, a structure that filters reality based on learned information. However, when a person enters an expanded state of consciousness, that mesh becomes more flexible, allowing in new data, visions, and understandings. In women, this access seems to be supported by the combination of emotional sensitivity, activation of specific brain areas, and a natural openness to inner silence. That's why it is often women who begin to receive signals from the field before they even realize something is shifting inside. The most extraordinary thing about this intuitive ability is that it has no defined limits. Some women develop skills like perceiving energy fields, intuitively reading other people's bodies, interpreting symbols, connecting with spiritual guides, or channeling messages. These gifts are not mystical privileges, but natural extensions of refined perception. Not all women experience the same things or in the same way, but each can cultivate her own language with the invisible if she allows herself. The first step is always listening, and that listening begins within. In women's circles or spiritual support spaces, it's common to hear stories of unexplainable experiences that later prove to be real. Premonitory dreams, warnings that saved lives, sensations that turned out to be alerts, decisions made with a soul that led to the right place at the right time. All these testimonies are not coincidences. They are evidence that intuition is real, reliable, and above all, useful. It's not emotional decoration. It's concrete guidance. It's not whimsy. It's deep wisdom. On a practical level, a woman who lives guided by her intuition begins to make decisions more aligned with her well-being. She chooses healthier relationships, purposeful work, and environments where she can grow. She no longer settles for just surviving. She seeks to live with meaning, and that meaning is not dictated by society. She discovers it within herself. Each decision based on intuition reinforces a connection with the source. Each coherent step strengthens the trust in that channel. And so, step by step, she builds a spiritual life that isn't limited to rituals or beliefs, but is expressed in the way she lives, loves, and acts. This transformation also has a collective impact. When a woman dares to live intuitively, she inspires others to do the same. Her presence becomes magnetic, Her words carry weight. Her energy creates harmony, because a woman aligned with her intuition does not impose. She radiates. She does not control. She accompanies. She does not force. She trusts, and that trust is felt in her face, in her gaze, in the way she simply exists. Her mere presence can shift structures, soften tensions, open paths. And although she may not always be recognized for it, her influence is deep and lasting. In childhood, most girls have an active and awakened intuition. They sense their parents' emotional state, know when something is wrong even if no one says so, have intense dreams, talk to invisible beings, ask disconcerting questions. Sadly, in many contexts, that sensitivity is repressed. They are taught to be quiet, to not feel so much, to obey without questioning. The good news is that intuition never fully disappears. It may fall asleep, but it can always awaken. And the more it is honored, the stronger it becomes. It's like a spiritual muscle that is trained with practice, trust, and presence. To reconnect with sacred intuition, there's no need for grand gestures. It's enough to start observing how the body feels around certain people, what emotions surface without clear reason, what dreams repeat, what signs appear in daily life. Sometimes intuition shows up as a song that plays at the perfect moment, a word that repeats in different places, or a bodily sensation that guides. The more attention is given, the more the channel activates, because the universe is always speaking. The question is whether we are willing to listen. In the feminine spiritual path, intuition is not an accessory. It is an indispensable ally. It allows us to navigate the unknown, to hold the unseen, to accompany from the soul. And although the modern world may try to reduce it to superstition or exaggeration, more and more women are acclaiming it as an essential part of their awakening. Because one cannot live fully while ignoring the voice of the soul. And that voice often manifests as intuition. The women blessed by God, those touched by the divine source, know it without needing to explain it. They feel, they perceive, they understand without words. And from that deep place, they walk with faith, because their guidance is not outside. It is within, in the most sacred place, their heart. Having explored the power of sacred intuition as a direct channel to universal consciousness, we now enter a secret that often goes unnoticed, yet holds transformative spiritual power: the language of tears. This third secret is not just about crying as an emotional expression, but about understanding that, for women connected to the divine source, cry is an act of release, deep cleansing, and energetic realignment. Tears, far from being a sign of weakness, are a high form of communication between the soul and the divine. When a woman cries from the center of her being, she is offering through that sacred water everything her soul no longer needs to carry. From a young age, many women are taught that crying isn't okay, that it's a sign of weakness, instability, or drama. Some learn to hide their tears. Others get used to swallowing them until they become knots in the throat or chest. However, in many spiritual traditions, crying has always been seen as a healing channel. It is through tears that trapped emotions are released, energetic blocks dissolve, and internal processes are allowed that the mind alone cannot manage. In indigenous rituals, sacred ceremonies, or deep meditation practices, spontaneous crying is one of the most common signs of awakening. It doesn't need a rational explanation, because the soul knows what it's releasing. Jacobo Grinberg, in his research on perception and consciousness, repeatedly observed how, upon accessing expanded states of awareness, many people cried for no apparent reason. Tears would simply flow during meditation, introspection, or mystical experiences. For him, this was a natural response to the energetic field to an information reset. When someone connects with a deep truth that had been repressed, or when an intense emotional memory is touched, the system needs to release tension. Tears are that release valve that allows for the restoration of internal balance. In women, this process happens with particular intensity. The female body, due to its hormonal, energetic, and emotional configuration, has a natural affinity with the movement of inner waters. Emotions, often stored in the womb, the heart, or the throat, find and cry a way to be expressed without words. That's why many women say they feel lighter after crying, as if they've shed an invisible weight, because they actually have. The energetic field, as Grinberg explained, reorganizes itself when what was stagnant is released. And tears act as catalysts for that reorganization. Crying is not just a reaction to something sad. It is an act of honesty with oneself. It is allowing oneself to feel without censorship, without judgment, without rush. And in that surrender, a deep spiritual connection often opens. It is not uncommon that after a sincere cry, a sense of peace, clarity, or even inexplicable gratitude appears, as if the tears had cleared the channel and allowed the passage of a new, clean, loving energy. That's one of the reasons why many spiritual practices include moments of crying, because they know it is part of the soul's purification process. In collective contexts, such as women's circles or healing ceremonies, crying holds even deeper power. When a woman allows herself to cry in front of other women, without shame or restraint, she is doing something many generations before her could not. She is opening a door of liberation that touches not only her personal story, but the emotional history of her lineage. In that context, tears are no longer individual. They become shared. One woman cries, but within her cry are the mother, the grandmother, the great-grandmother, all those who stayed silent, all those who were strong when they didn't want to be, all those who never allowed themselves to break. That's why collective crying often becomes healing at a level beyond rational understanding. Something stirs deep within. Something shifts. Something is cleansed. Symbolically, tears are water that springs from within. And water, in all traditions, is a symbol of purification, transformation, and the crossing between worlds. In spiritual alchemy, water represents emotion, intuition, the deep feminine. When a woman cries, she is bringing to the surface a part of herself that had remained submerged. She is making the invisible visible, and in doing so, she is honoring her truth. That's why tears should not be suppressed but respected. We shouldn't ask, "Why are you crying?" but instead say, "Cry all you need to. I'm here." Because often what is being cried out has no name, but it carries weight, and releasing it is part of the journey back to the soul. Moreover, from a physiological standpoint, crying has proven benefits. It has been shown that crying releases endorphins, reduces stress, and lowers accumulated emotional pressure. But beyond the biological, the act of crying holds an essential spiritual component. It is a ritual of the body, a ceremony of cleansing, a way in which the soul surrenders and opens to the mystery. One cannot cry with the ego. The ego resists. Tears come when we let our guard down, when we accept what hurts, when we stop fighting. And in that surrender, there is power. There is grace. There is beauty. Many women connected to their spirituality share that they've cried during meditations, while listening to a song, while contemplating nature, watching their children sleep, or remembering something long forgotten. Those tears don't come from pain, but from awe. They are tears of truth. Tears that flow when something touches the soul and leaves it speechless. And in those moments, the woman becomes a bridge between the human and the divine. Her body, her emotion, her surrender, everything aligns. Everything becomes sacred. When a woman understands the spiritual power behind her tears, she stops apologizing for feeling. She no longer tries to hold back tears for fear of being judged or forces herself to appear strong when everything inside her is asking to surrender. She begins to recognize that every tear that flows from the soul is a way of returning to center, of cleansing emotions that overwhelm her, of releasing stories that live within her. Even if she's not fully aware of them, that awareness completely transforms her relationship with pain, with sensitivity, and with her own feminine energy. A woman who allows herself to cry consciously becomes lighter. She begins to walk through life with less accumulated emotional weight. Her decisions become clearer because they are no longer clouded by emotional repression. Her energy flows more freely. It doesn't mean that difficult moments disappear, but now she knows how to move through pain in a more authentic, more loving, more connected way. And that connection with herself also directly impacts her relationships. When a woman heals her relationship with crying, she also heals the way she holds others. She stops fearing other people's emotions because she no longer fears her own. She can embrace the tears of her daughters, her friends, her sisters, without trying to silence or fix them. She simply holds space. And that holding is deeply spiritual. There's a common scene among many women who go through an awakening, crying without an apparent reason. Suddenly, in the middle of the day, while doing the dishes or listening to a song, silent tears appear that don't seem tied to any specific external cause. These tears are not from sadness, but from release. It's as if something inside says, "Enough of carrying this." And when that happens, when a woman surrenders to that spontaneous cleansing, something reorganizes in her energy field. Grinberg described it as a structural shift in perceptual matrix. By releasing emotional energy, new possible configurations open up, new ways of seeing, feeling, and being. This phenomenon becomes even more powerful when the woman begins to support her crying processes with conscious practices, lighting a candle, placing her hands on her heart or womb, breathing deeply, writing down what she feels, speaking with her ancestors in meditation, or simply curling into fetal position and surrendering to the tears. These are symbolic acts that deepen the process. They turn crying into ceremony. They give it space. They honor it. They make it into medicine. Because yes, tears can heal, not just the body, but the soul. Many times, cry is the only thing that can break through the armor built by accumulated pain. It is what allows light to enter, what opens the heart, what dissolves rage, guilt, or shame. That's why when a woman allows herself to cry for everything she didn't cry for before, she is making room for the new. She is making space for love, for tenderness, for joy. Because once the emotional weight is released, life flows differently. It becomes softer, more sensitive, more real. And in that flow, tears stop being a limit. They become a bridge between the woman we were and the one we are being born into, between the pain we inherited and the freedom we are building, between the voice we silenced and the truth we are reclaiming. That bridge isn't crossed with explanations. It is crossed with presence, with breath, with surrender, and yes, often with tears. That's why the third secret, known only by women blessed by God, is not a theoretical concept. It is a deep experience. It is understanding that the soul speaks through tears, that when we allow them to flow, we give our truth permission to be expressed, that when we stop judging crying, we are embracing our humanity. And in doing so, by embracing all of who we are, we also come closer to the divine. Have you ever felt like your tears spoke for you when you had no words left? Share in the comments that moment when crying was your only way to heal. Your story may touch someone else's soul. And if you felt this message resonated with you, like the video and subscribe. Maybe it's a universe's way of reminding you that you are not alone. After understanding tears as a spiritual language that cleanses, reorganizes, and reveals, we now arrive at one of the most subtle yet most transformative secrets of the feminine soul: silence. This fourth secret, which many women blessed by God know in the depths of their being, has no shape, cannot be seen, and is never imposed. It manifests as presence, as a meaningful emptiness, as a pause that says everything without needing words. The power of feminine silence does not lie in the absence of sound, but in the intensity that dwells in that space where everything can be felt, intuited, understood, and transformed. In a society that rewards speed, instant answers, and constant reaction, women who know how to remain in silence are often seen as cold, submissive, or even weak. Nothing could be further from the truth. A woman who chooses conscious silence does not do it out of fear or obedience. She does it because she has learned to listen to what is happening within, to the rhythm of her soul, to the whisper of her intuition and the voice of the invisible. And in that silence, which does not seek to attract attention or to be right, she holds, observes, understands, and transforms. Because true silence is not emptiness, it is containment. It is not passivity, it is power. Jacobo Grinberg, in his exploration of the neural field and expanded perception, addressed the importance of inner silence as one of the gateways to non-ordinary states of consciousness. His approach pointed out that when mental noise ceases, when words stop, consciousness expands. The brain, no longer occupied with constantly translating or analyzing stimuli, opens to the subtle, and it is there where the quantum begins to reveal itself. Women who have learned to live from that state of active silence not only achieve a deeper perception of their surroundings, but also generate a transformative effect on those around them. Their presence, without saying a word, can organize energies, ease tensions, and open space for the sacred. In many ancestral cultures, a woman's silence was a language in itself. Grandmothers didn't need to speak to be understood. A glance, a posture, a breath was enough, because they knew that not everything needs to be named to be real, that there are truths that are felt, that are transmitted from soul to soul, without the need to speak them. In that silence lived wisdom. And it is that same wisdom that many women still carry today without even realizing it. When a woman enters a space and simply sits in stillness, when she listens without interrupting, when she breathes before responding, when she chooses not to react but to observe, she is using her silence as a tool for expansion. This power is not easy to cultivate in a world that teaches us to speak without thinking, to fill every second with noise, to take up space with words. But when a woman chooses silence as a path, she begins to inhabit a kind of truth that cannot be debated. Silence gives her access to what language cannot reach. It allows her to touch the deepest fibers of reality. It offers her a place from where she can hear her soul more clearly, because in the midst of external noise, the soul whispers. And to hear it, one must be in silence. The most beautiful thing about feminine silence is that it is not neutral. It has nuances, it has depth, it has intention. It can be a healing silence, a firm silence, a compassionate silence, or a fertile silence. A woman can use silence to heal a conflict, to protect herself, to meditate, to honor, to process. And each of these silences carries a different vibration. Not all silences are the same, because not all the women who inhabit them do so from the same place. But when silence is born from a deep connection with the divine, it becomes a channel, a portal of sacred energy that radiates without speaking. Many women discover this secret in times of crisis, when there is nothing left to say, when words run out, when the pain is so immense that only silence can contain it. In those moments, a strength appears that does not come from the ego, but from the soul, and from that silent strength, they begin to rebuild themselves, not from the noise of the world, but from their own center. And that center, once inhabited, becomes their refuge, their temple, their source of power. Grinberg spoke of states of deep stillness as gateways to the non-local, to the universal field of consciousness where everything is connected. A woman in silence, deeply connected with herself, accesses that dimension without the need for complex rituals or technical knowledge. She only needs to breathe, to close her eyes, and to remember that her soul already knows, that her body already holds the answers, that silence is not absence, but presence, a presence so complete, so surrendered, so alive, that it needs no demonstration. Women who live from this state are often the ones who transform the most without being noticed. They don't give great speeches, but their actions speak for them. They don't seek recognition, but their energy is unforgettable. They don't shout, but their presence is heard, because their power does not lie in what they say, but in what they are, and what they are is expressed more clearly in silence than in 1,000 words. A woman in silence, connected to her truth, becomes a field of resonance. Her calm is not indifference. It is awareness. Her stillness is not absence. It is expanded presence. Many times, in tense situations, the woman who consciously chooses to remain silent is not avoiding conflict. She is protecting her energy and creating a space where the essential can be revealed. That kind of silence is sacred because it holds the power to bring order to chaos without the need for direct confrontation. It is a form of inner alchemy where the ego dissolves and wisdom emerges, not to win an argument, but to remember what truly matters. In women's circles and healing spaces, collective silence is one of the most powerful tools. When a group of women remain silent together, an energetic field is created that transcends the verbal. Where there are no words, the soul speaks. And often, what is not said is more revealing than what is expressed. Gazes that hold, synchronized breathing, shared tears without explanation. All of this happens when silence is not emptiness, but a channel, because in that state, each woman begins to listen to herself again, and in listening, she connects with others from a more authentic place, not from personas, roles, or masks, but from essence. Often, silence is also a tool of resistance. In a world that expects women to react, defend themselves, or explain constantly, the one who chooses not to is exercising her power, not because she has nothing to say, but because she knows silence is her refuge and her strategy. She doesn't need to justify her intuition. She doesn't need to argue her choices. She doesn't need to please with her words. It is enough to inhabit her inner space and allow time to reveal what needs to be revealed. That way of acting unsettles those who live from control, but liberates those who live from the soul. Grinberg, in his observations on altered states of consciousness, noted that sustained stillness is a doorway to the transcendent. It is not just physical stillness, but an internal disposition to stop mental movement, to silence automatic reactions, and to allow the invisible to become visible. Women who practice meditation, conscious connection with nature, or simply moments of deep introspection, begin to notice that their perception sharpens, their sensitivity expands, their inner clarity strengthens, not because they learned something new, but because they let go of the noise that distracted them from what they already knew. Feminine silence can also be an act of love. When a woman remains silent in the face of another's pain, not because she doesn't know what to say, but because she understands that the other's soul needs space to process, she is often the gift of her presence without interference. Not all pain needs answers. Not all emptiness is meant to be filled with words. Sometimes, the most valuable thing a woman can offer is simply to be there, to breathe together, to hold with her gaze, to allow the other to find her own voice without pressure. That kind of silence is never forgotten. It leaves a mark of deep love. On the spiritual path, learning to be in silence is as important as learning to pray, to meditate, or to serve, because silence is a foundation for which everything is born. There is no true creation without a previous space of emptiness. There is no wise word without a silence that precedes it. There is no revelation without a pause first. That's why women who cultivate silence are not less active or less powerful. They are weavers of time, guardians of the natural rhythm, channels of the essential. They are the ones who move from within, who do not get carried away by collective hysteria or superficial impulses. They are the ones who breathe before speaking, feel before deciding, and observe before intervening. A woman connected with the power of her silence can walk through the world without needing to impose herself. Her very presence inspires respect, generates trust, radiates wisdom, and that respect is not earned with titles or speeches, but with inner coherence. Because true silence can only be sustained through a real connection with the soul. Pretending silence is repression. Inhabiting it with awareness is spiritual power. Often, in the processes of spiritual awakening, silence appears as a necessity. There are phases when one no longer wishes to speak, when it feels like everything important is happening inside. In those moments, the woman withdraws slightly from the external world, not as an act of escape, but as a way to reorder her energetic field. In that retreat, she can reconnect with herself, hear what she couldn't before, heal what she hadn't yet been able to see. And when she speaks again, she does so from a different place, from a place that is more authentic, softer, wiser. Silence also allows intuition to express itself more clearly. When there is no noise, inner messages emerge with strength. And in that clarity, many women discover answers they have been seeking outside. They understand what they need to release, what they need to nourish, what they need to transform. And not because someone tells them, but because the soul in silence speaks to them with an unmistakable voice. The secret of feminine silence is not new. It is as ancient as the earth. It lives in the wise women, the teachers, the healers, the grandmothers. And today, more than ever, it is awakening in women who are remembering their essence, who know they don't need to prove anything, who don't have to chase after anyone, who understand that their worth doesn't depend on what they say, but on who they are. And when a woman recognizes herself from that place, from that silent and powerful core, everything around her begins to shift, because she herself becomes living transformation. After walking the path of silence as a powerful spiritual tool, we now arrive at a secret as ancient as it is denied, as luminous as it is misunderstood. Conscious sexuality. This fifth secret, which only awakens in women truly connected to the divine source, has nothing to do with the superficial models of desire imposed by society. nor what was been taught about the body through fear or guilt. Conscious sexuality is, at its core, a channel of spiritual creation, a sacred path that allows a woman not only to experience physical pleasure, but to activate her creative power, heal ancient memories, and expand her awareness. For centuries, female sexuality was reduced to a passive role, limited to reproduction or subordinated to male desire. This fragmented view not only robbed women of their ability to fully enjoy, but also dimmed the spiritual dimension of their bodies. In many cultures, the belief was established that sexual energy was dirty, dangerous, or had to be repressed in order to attain enlightenment. But ancestral wisdoms, tantric traditions, lunar cults, and the hidden memories of wise women tell another story. A story in which the woman's body is a temple, and her pleasure is a form of prayer. Where sexual energy is a source of life, creativity, and deep healing. Jacobo Grinberg understood, in his explorations of the syntropic field, that the human body is an instrument of perception and manifestation. It not only perceives the field, it also modifies it. And within that body, sexual energy holds a special place. It is one of the most powerful forms of internal energetic movement. When a woman connects with her sexuality through awareness, an activation occurs within her that goes far beyond physical pleasure. Waves, vibrations, altered states of perception are generated. Many women report feeling an expansion that travels through their entire body, internal visions, heart-opening, states of communion with the universe. This experience is not about specific techniques, but about the willingness to feel the body is sacred, to surrender to the moment without judgment, and to allow pleasure to be lived as a complete spiritual experience. The conscious woman understands that her body is a source, that her womb not only creates biological life, but can also gestate projects, relationships, healings. When it is activated through pleasure, her whole system vibrates at a higher frequency. The guilt, shame, or rejection learned in her personal history and her ancestral lineage begins to dissolve. And in that process, something greater is revealed. The body becomes channel. The soul expresses itself through the skin. Breathing becomes a ritual. Movement becomes dance. Energy rises, circulates, radiates. And in that state, the woman remembers. She remembers that her pleasure is not sin, it is power. That her body is not an object, it is a portal. That her desire is not weakness, it is a compass. Many women who have gone through spiritual awakening processes agree that a fundamental part of the journey is reconciliation with their sexuality. Some discover it through tantra, others in women's circles, others through body-based therapy, and others simply by listening to their bodies after years of disconnection. The path doesn't matter. What matters is a reunion. When a woman stops seeing her body as something separate from her soul and begins to fully inhabit it, everything changes. Her self-esteem, her creativity, her way of relating, her life force. Because a woman connected to her sexuality through consciousness is a woman ignited, and that light doesn't come from the outside. It is born from within. Conscious sexuality also implies a new way of relating. It's not about techniques or positions, but about presence, real connection, authentic surrender. When a woman enters intimacy from her center, without pretending, without faking, without playing a role, her energy transforms the encounter. Because it's no longer just about the body, it's about the energy that flows between bodies. It's about two souls recognizing each other, breathing together, sharing not just skin but awareness. And in that space, healing happens. Because pleasure is not just enjoyment, it is also medicine. Many emotional and energetic wounds accumulated over time can begin to be released through conscious sexuality. Suppressed screams, memories of abuse, messages of repression, devaluation, betrayals, grief, all of that is stored in the body, especially in the pelvic area, in the womb, in the vagina. And when a woman allows herself to fully feel, when she stops numbing that part of herself, when she inhabits her sexuality without hurry or judgment, she begins to let go, to cry, to tremble, to laugh, to vibrate. And in that process, it's not just her who is being liberated. She also frees those who came before and opens a path for those who will come after. Grinberg spoke of expanded states of consciousness as gateways to the divine, and sexuality, when lived with full awareness, is one of the most direct paths to that state. because the whole body is involved, because there is no separation between the spiritual and the physical, because the soul expresses itself through the skin, through moans, through breath, through contractions, through surrender. And this experience, far from taking us away from spirituality, immerses us in it. It reminds us that the divine also lives in what is most carnal, most human, most intimate. When a woman reconciles with her pleasure, she opens to creation on every level. She begins to write, to paint, to start projects, to manifest new realities. Because sexual energy is also creative energy. They are two names for the same force. That force that pulses in the womb, that rises along the spine, that illuminates the mind and radiates out into the world. Women who dare to activate that energy from love, from consciousness, and from respect for their body become powerful manifestors, not just of projects, but of a new paradigm. This fifth secret, when understood and lived, transforms the way a woman inhabits her body, her love, her relationships, and life itself. Because a woman who recognizes herself as a channel of creation through her sexuality is a woman who remembers her divinity. She no longer separates, no longer fragments, no longer hides. She integrates. She honors herself. She ignites. And in doing so, she lights the way for other women as well. Tell us in the comments, when did you begin to reconcile with your body? What did you feel when you awaken your creative energy? Your experience, no matter how intimate, can resonate with many other souls. If something within you is activated by this message, write, "I am a channel of creation," to remind yourself each time you return here. After igniting the creative energy that lives in the body, the feminine soul inevitably encounters a doorway it must cross if it wishes to move beyond ego, wounds, and the past. The doorway of forgiveness. This sixth secret, often misunderstood as a moral obligation or surrender of dignity, is in truth one of the most powerful tools a spiritual woman has to reprogram her energetic field and liberate her lineage. Forgiving, from this perspective, doesn't mean justifying what hurt us or pretending nothing happened. Forgiving means releasing the emotional burden, rewriting the connection we have with the experience, and making space for a higher frequency that restores our inner coherence. Jacobo Grinberg suggested that every experience creates an imprint on perceptual mesh, a pattern of energy that shapes how we see and feel the world. If a woman holds resentment, pain, betrayal, or guilt, those imprints remain active in her field, not because she wants them to, but because unprocessed emotion continues to vibrate. And every time something external triggers that memory, the pattern repeats. That's why toxic relationships, overwhelming emotions, or internal blocks often reappear without an obvious cause. Forgiveness, when lived from the soul, doesn't erase what happened, but it does transform the energetic charge left behind. It allows the pattern to stop repeating and the field to reorganize in a more harmonious direction. The act of forgiving doesn't happen in the mind. It's not a logical decision or a rehearsed speech. It's a deep inner movement, often unexpected, that arises when the soul is ready to be free. Many women go through intense processes of emotional and spiritual healing where, suddenly, they feel the genuine desire to let go, not because someone told them they should, but because they recognize they no longer want to carry a story that keeps them tied to pain. Forgiving isn't about reconciling with the one who hurt us. It's about reconciling with the part of ourselves that was trapped in that wound. It's looking with compassion at the woman we were in that moment and saying to her, "You don't have to stay there anymore. We can move on." In spiritual traditions of feminine wisdom, forgiveness is seen as a ritual of soul purification. It's not done for the other, it's done for oneself. Because every retained emotion takes up space inside us. Every unresolved story becomes a knot that blocks energy. And every time a woman chooses to forgive, she is opening a portal of deep renewal. Many times, after a true act of forgiveness, synchronicities occur, perceptions shift, physical releases happen. Some women feel they can breathe better, that their dreams become clearer, that their creativity is activated. It's not magic. It's the field reorganizing itself. Grinberg observed how certain events of emotional opening generated waves that altered the basal state of the neuronal field. This means that when a high-charge emotion is released, the system enters a more receptive, more fluid, more coherent state. In other words, Forgiveness doesn't just make us feel better. It literally changes the way our consciousness interacts with reality. And from that new interaction, we attract different experiences, not because we desire them from a mind, but because we vibrate differently, and the field responds to that vibration. Forgiveness is especially important in the healing of the feminine lineage. Many women, when they begin their journeys of self-knowledge, encounter painful memories that don't directly belong to them, but that they feel as their own. Stories of abandonment, betrayal, abuse, silence, sacrifice. Stories inherited from their mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers. And even though those women are no longer physically present, their emotions, their decisions, their wounds remain alive in the energetic memory of the lineage. When a woman forgives, she is also releasing those memories. She is saying to all who came before, we don't need to carry this anymore. It's time to let go. That act, although invisible, has a real impact. There are women who, after doing forgiveness rituals with their ancestresses, experience changes in their relationships with their mothers, daughters, sisters. Relationships that were once blocked begin to flow. Words that were never spoken find their way. Old wounds begin to heal. Because forgiveness, when it is authentic, doesn't need explanation. Its energy acts directly on the field. It doesn't persuade, it transforms. And that transformation is felt. Forgiving is not a one-day act. It's a process. Sometimes it begins with an internal decision, sometimes with an unsent letter, sometimes with a deep cry, sometimes with visualization, sometimes with simple prayer. It doesn't matter how it begins. What matters is that it's born from honesty, from the real desire to stop carrying the weight, to free the body, the heart, the mind, because as long as the wound remains active, we can't fully move forward. We keep looking at the past with today's eyes, repeating cycles that no longer represent us. Forgiveness brings us back to the present. It reminds us that the power to heal lies in our hands, not in the hands of the other. In many spaces of feminine healing, forgiveness is honored as a revolutionary act, not as something weak or resigned, but as a leap in consciousness. Because forgiving means seeing the other as a mirror. It means acknowledging the pain, but also letting go of identification with it. It means embracing the shadow without denying it, but also without letting it define us. And when a woman crosses that threshold, when she allows herself to walk the bridge from pain to freedom, something inside her changes forever. When a woman understands that forgiveness is a conscious choice that primarily benefits her own inner balance, she begins to see the past with new perspective. She stops asking why they hurt her or what she should have done differently. She begins to ask what part of her is ready to be freed, what version of herself is ready to be born after that transformation. The act of forgiving does not diminish the value of her pain. On the contrary, it honors it, because recognizing the hurt and still choosing to release the burden is one of the highest forms of self-love that can exist. Not because the other deserves it, but because she does. In spiritual practice, forgiveness often manifests as a symbolic death. A story dies, a character dies, an identity built around suffering dies, and that grief can be intense. Many women feel sadness, anger, confusion at the start of this path, because forgiving also means saying goodbye to a part of themselves. But what comes after is light. It is peace. It is expansion. It is that feeling of dropping a stone you've carried in your chest without knowing how heavy it was. And when that stone falls, everything rearranges. The body rests. The heart opens. The energy flows again. Jacobo Grinberg spoke about how the reconfiguration of the synergic field could occur spontaneously during moments of deep insight. That is, when a person experienced such an authentic emotional understanding that their consciousness reorganized instantly. Genuine forgiveness produces that kind of effect. It's not about repeating affirmations or empty phrases. It's about feeling, crying, screaming if needed, emptying oneself to be filled again. And when that movement is complete, the personal field changes. It becomes more coherent, lighter, more receptive. And when the field changes, what we attract, what we build, and what we allow also changes. In the stories of many spiritually awakened women, forgiveness has been the most challenging portal, but also the most transformative. Some go through it by forgiving their parents for not being emotionally present, others by releasing resentment toward a partner who betrayed their trust, some by looking at their own reflection and stopping the blame for past decisions, others by understanding they don't have to carry the wounds of the feminine lineage that are not theirs to hold. Every story is different, but in all of them, the outcome is the same. The soul feels lighter, the gaze becomes clearer, and a kind of love appears, one that does not come from outside, but from within. That love is not a fleeting emotion. It is a living force that dwells at the core of being, and it activates when we stop fighting what was, when we accept life as it came and choose to walk from a new place. Grinberg sensed that this acceptance was not resignation, but alignment with the field, because what is not accepted cannot be transformed. What is repressed becomes embedded. What is denied gets repeated. But what is seen with love changes, and forgiveness is that looking with love, not out of weakness, but out of strength, because only someone who has walked through pain with awareness can reach the other side with an open heart. The act of forgiving also has a collective dimension. When a woman forgives, she doesn't just heal her own story. She is healing the story of many others who live something similar and have not yet found a way to be free. She is weaving a new pattern into the feminine collective unconscious, one where pain is not denied, but also not inherited, one where wounds turn into wisdom, one where the past no longer determines the present. Many women who work with groups, circles, or therapeutic spaces feel that their capacity to hold others increases after undergoing a deep process of forgiveness, because their field no longer vibrates from the wound, but from compassion, and that vibration supports, inspires, and transforms. In everyday life, forgiving also means choosing every day not to return to that same inner place. It's not about forgetting, but about no longer feeding what hurts, about not replaying the story in our mind over and over, about not using pain as identity. This takes practice, attention, love, but it's possible, and with time, it becomes natural. You no longer need to try so hard to stay balanced, because the heart is freer, and the soul is lighter. A simple yet powerful ritual many women practice is writing a forgiveness letter, not to send it, but to express what they feel, to pour out the pain, to say what couldn't be said, to let go. Some write to the person who hurt them, others to themselves, others to their inner child, to their mother, to their body, to life. Writing from the soul has a direct effect on the field. It organizes, clarifies, releases, and often, after doing it, magical things happen. People reappear, overdue conversations open up, physical pains disappear, because sincere forgiveness moves energy, and that energy creates new realities. The sixth secret is not easy to integrate, but it is one of the most sacred, because it involves embracing pain with such awareness that it can no longer hurt. It means acknowledging we are responsible for our healing, even if we are not to blame for what happened. It means open the heart knowing that it makes us stronger, not more vulnerable. And above all, it means no longer being slaves of the past in order to become creators of the present. A woman who has deeply forgiven does not forget what she lived, but she no longer vibrates from resentment. She vibrates from freedom. Her voice is clearer, her energy cleaner, her gaze more serene. And that serenity is not superficial. It is a calm of someone who has walked through her own hell and returned with her soul intact. The calm of someone who no longer needs to defend herself because she no longer lives in war. The calm of someone who chose to heal and now walks in peace. After crossing the threshold of forgiveness as a tool for deep liberation and energetic reprogramming, the feminine consciousness opens to one of the oldest, most intuitive and mystical secrets that exist: the connection with lunar cycles and universal synchronicity. This seventh and final secret does not belong to any religion or specific tradition. It is a truth that lives in every woman's body, although it often remains dormant. It is a natural tuning between the internal rhythms of the female body and the movements of the moon, gravitational fields, and cosmic timing. An energetic dance that has always been present, but that only women connected to their essence are able to read, interpret, and use for their spiritual expansion. For centuries, Ancient cultures understood that woman is intimately linked to the cycles of nature, especially those of the moon. It is no coincidence that the average duration of the menstrual cycle matches the lunar cycle. Nor is it a coincidence that the stages of the female cycle symbolically correspond to the moon phases: new moon as menstruation and renewal, waxing moon as inner ovulation and opening, full moon as peak creative expression, and waning moon as retreat, introspection, and cleansing. This symbolic language is not poetic metaphor. It is an energetic reality, and when a woman becomes aware of it, her life changes. Jacobo Grinberg, though he did not focus his research on astrology or the moon, did understand that repetitive patterns exist in the field of perception that respond to larger structures. He spoke of the neuronal field as a space of connection between the being and the environment, where nonlinear, quantum, and archetypal forms of information are encoded. From that perspective, it's not hard to understand that the female body, in its biological and energetic wisdom, also responds to cosmic structures that pass through it, not in a superstitious way, but through a web of synchronicities that link the self with the universe. In this sense, the moon is not just a satellite. It is a mirror of internal rhythm, an ancestral guide, a constant reminder that everything is cyclical, that nothing is permanent, that life moves in spirals, not in straight lines. Women who begin to observe their cycles attentively discover that there are not only physical changes, but also emotional, mental, intuitive, and spiritual shifts that repeat with certain regularity. There are times of the month when they feel overflowing creative energy, deep emotional clarity, intense spiritual openness, and others when they feel the need to withdraw, to sleep more, to be silent, to cry, to let go. These changes are not hormonal instability, as often labeled by traditional medicine. They are phases of the same cyclical process, which has its own intelligence. And when a woman begins to listen instead of resist, she finds a new way to organize her life, her decisions, and her spirituality. Many women's circles and ancestral wisdom traditions speak of the secret calendar of the female body, an internal map not ruled by the clock, but by the moon. This way of living involves observing not only menstruation or ovulation, but also how the woman feels in each phase, how her intuition responds, how her dreams manifest, how her energy vibrates. Some begin to notice they feel more creative during the full moon, more clarity during the waxing phase, more need for rest in the waning phase, and more spiritual connection during the new moon. And by adjusting their routine, their decisions, even their diet or relationships to that cycle, everything begins to flow more naturally, less forced, more in alignment with what they truly feel. This way of living also reconciles a woman with her menstruation. Instead of seeing it as a punishment or a nuisance, she begins to understand it as a moment of power. Menstruation is not only a physical process, it is also an emotional and energetic cleansing. During those days, the body releases not just uterine tissue, but also memories, accumulated emotions, internal tensions. Many women discover that if they allow themselves to rest, meditate, write, or simply be with themselves during that time, they receive clear intuitions, release deep burdens, or even heal old emotional wounds. Because menstrual blood, from a sacred perspective, carries ancestral wisdom. It is not dirty, it is symbolically sacred. It is the materialization of the complete cycle. And by honoring it, the woman also honors her connection with the earth, with water, with the moon, with the source. Grinberg said that expanded consciousness required a flexible mind, open to unconventional forms of knowledge. In that sense, women who begin to follow lunar rhythms are not abandoning logic. They're integrating a deeper logic, a logic that recognizes that the universe is alive, that everything is rhythm, that everything vibrates, and that when the body aligns with that rhythm, it accesses subtler levels of perception. It's no coincidence that many women have premonitory dreams during certain moon phases, that they receive inner messages more clearly during the new moon, that they channel entire projects during the waxing moon. That's not coincidence. That's resonance. That's synchronicity. Universal synchronicity does not manifest only through the moon. It also appears in coincidences that aren't really coincidences, in encounters that feel magical, in repeating numbers, in words that arrive at the exact right moment. And women connected to their inner field are especially sensitive to these signs, because their body is attuned. because their consciousness is awake, because they no longer need external proof. They feel the truth in their chest. And from that feeling, they walk with a different kind of certainty, not because they know everything, but because they trust they're being guided. Many women who have gone through a spiritual awakening say they began noticing these synchronicities after reconnecting with their internal cycles, as if by returning to inhabit their body with awareness, a channel of direct communication with the universe opened. And it's not that the universe changed, it's that now they can hear it, because the internal noise has quieted, because the resistance has dissolved, because the frequency is different. This seventh secret doesn't ask that a woman become an expert in astrology or memorize lunar phases. What it asks is that she observes, that she listens, that she feels herself, that she remembers, because her body already knows. Her blood has always known. Her womb holds a memory, and when that memory is activated, everything aligns. Decisions become more organic, relationships more conscious, work more fluid. Life becomes lighter, because living in synchronicity is not living in control. It's living in trust. When a woman begins to trust the subtle language of synchronicity, her way of making decisions transforms. She no longer needs everything planned out, no longer depends solely on mental strategies or rigid structures. She learns to recognize the signs that life offers at each step. That sign might be a vivid dream, a conversation that comes at the exact right time, a message repeated in different forms, a discomfort in the body telling her something is out of alignment. Those signs, which she might once have ignored as irrelevant, are now guides. The universe speaks in symbols, and she has learned to hear them from a deeper place. This awakening of synchronicity is also accompanied by a sense of unity with everything that exists. The woman no longer feels separated from natural cycles. She knows that what happens outside has a reflection inside, that the moon is not far away in the sky. It also moves within her womb, that the sea with its tides reminds her of the power of her inner waters, that the seasons of the year resonate with her own processes of growth, harvest, transformation, and rest. This understanding is not intellectual. It is lived. It is expressed in how she moves through life, in how she treats herself, in how she respects her body and her timing. Many women, when they begin to observe their lunar connection, rediscover the pleasure of simplicity. They begin to write down their emotions according to the phases, to record their dreams, to create personal rituals during the full or new moon, to plan intentions aligned with the cycle. These practices, which may seem small, generate deep transformation, not because they are magical formulas, but because they open a space for inner listening. And when a woman listens to herself, she reclaims the power to guide herself. Moreover, this connection with the moon awakens a spiritual quality that for centuries was persecuted or silenced. Vision. Women who live in synchronicity with their cycles develop a special sensitivity to intuit what is coming, to perceive energies, to read the field of people and places. This vision is not fantasy or suggestion. It is a natural form of perception that is activated when body and soul are aligned. In many cultures, this capacity was revered in figures like the priestess, the visionary, the medicine woman. They were not fortune tellers in the superficial sense. They were field readers, bearers of wisdom that doesn't come from books, but from direct contact with nature and mystery. Grinberg spoke of the neuronal field as a space capable of capturing nonlinear, archetypal, resonant information. Women connected to the moon operate from that logic. They perceive patterns, understand symbols, sense vibrations, and often they don't know how they know it, but they do. And that knowing, even without words, has roots. It has weight. It has truth. In a world that still values logic over intuition, that knowing is revolutionary because it can't be controlled, measured, or tamed. It is free, and a woman who lives from that freedom is a living force. This connection also invites a new form of feminine leadership, a leadership that does not impose, but radiates, that does not shout, but guides through presence, that doesn't need hierarchy because it stands on coherence. Women who live in tune with the moon don't seek to dominate. They seek to share, to care, to ignite others, not out of obligation, but because their energy flows that way. And when they do, They transform the spaces they inhabit, because they don't arrive with speeches, they arrive with vibration. And that vibration, soft but powerful, creates resonance. It awakens something in those around them. In recent years, the return of the lunar to daily life has gained strength. Women all over the world are once again looking to the sky, observing their bodies, feeling their rhythms, not because it's trendy, but because the soul needs it. In a fast-paced world, masculine in its demand for constant productivity, competitive and disconnected from nature, the female body asks to return to the rhythm of the moon, not to become passive, but to find its center, its truth, its timing, its way of creating. And that return is not a step back. It's a leap into the essential, into what has always been, but had been forgotten. The call now is to remember, to return to the sacred, to look at the moon not as a celestial object, but as a spiritual ally, to understand that every time you menstruate, you are renewing your field, that every new moon is a chance for inner planting, that every full moon is a moment of harvest and expansion, that every phase carries a message, that your body is not broken or out of sync. It just needs to be listened to in the right language. And if you no longer menstruate, that does not mean the connection is lost. On the contrary, many women discover an even deeper connection to the lunar during menopause, because they are no longer conditioned by monthly biology, but can live their cyclic nature from a mature, free, wise consciousness. At that time, they become timekeepers, spiritual grandmothers, beacons for other women, because their body no longer creates biological life, but creates symbolic, energetic, spiritual life. And that creation is just as necessary as the other. The seventh secret is not something to be learned in a course or memorized. It is lived. It is felt. It is discovered day by day, with the moon as mirror and the body as temple. Each woman inhabits it in her own way, with her rhythms, with her processes, with her silences. But in all women, without exception, that secret leaves a mark, because it's not about doing more. It's about remembering who you are. And in that remembering, everything aligns. The moon, your blood, your dreams, your path. And when that happens, you no longer walk alone. You walk with the universe by your side. After journeying through these 7 spiritual secrets that only women blessed by God know, one certainty remains vibrating in the heart. The feminine awakening is not a trend or a passing movement. It is a deep calling from the soul, a response to centuries of disconnection, repression, and forgetting the sacred that lives in every woman. These secrets are not distant mysteries or knowledge reserved for a few. They are alive in the blood, in the dreams, in the tears, in the womb, in the silence, in the pleasure, and in the moon. Each of these keys does not seek to impose itself as an external truth, but to resonate as an inner memory, like a seed that is already within you and only needs water, space, and love to grow. The feminine lineage carries a silent wisdom that has been passed down generation after generation, despite forgetfulness, fear, and pain. Women who, without a name in history, held the world with their hands, their intuition, their presence. They knew without knowing how. They healed with herbs, dreamed the future, felt what no one said. And that same wisdom lives within you today. It doesn't matter if you grew up disconnected, if no one ever spoke to you about spirituality, or if you were taught to silence what you felt. Everything can awaken again. Everything can reignite, not because you learn it, but because you remember it, because your body, when listened to, tells you everything, because your soul, when given space, guides you home. To understand that your womb is an energetic portal, that your intuition is a gift, that your tears are medicine, that your silence transforms, that your sexuality is a sacred channel, that forgiveness reprograms your field, and that the moon marks your most intimate cycles, is not a foreign revelation. It is an act of return. It is to stop searching outside for what has always been inside. It is to look at your story with love, to recognize your wounds, to honor your strength, and to embrace the totality of who you are, with your light and your shadow, with your certainty and your contradictions, with your fire and your water. This path is not linear. It's not perfect. It is deeply human. There are days of clarity and others of confusion, moments of expansion, and others of closing. But in all of them, if you stay present, you will find guidance. Because when a woman puts herself at the service of her soul, everything around her begins to align. Not because challenges disappear, but because her way of inhabiting them changes. She no longer reacts from fear, but responds from awareness. She no longer seeks approval, but stands in her truth. She no longer fragments, but integrates. And in that integration lies the key. We live in a world that still tries to divide us: body and soul, reason and emotion, spirituality and daily life. But you can choose another way. You can choose to unite what they told you should be separate. You can menstruate and meditate. You can work and cry. You can heal and desire. You can be wise and sensual. You can create life and also create art, projects, safe spaces. You can speak firmly and hold silence when needed. You don't have to choose between being strong or being sensitive. You can be both at once. Because that is a feminine: movement, contradiction, intuition, creation, depth. You are not alone on this path. Many other women are awakening. Some beside you, others in distant lands, others who may not know it yet but will. When one woman awakens, her light reaches many more. When you heal backward and forward. Your mother, your daughters, your inner and outer sisters. Everything is connected. Everything is one. And each time you choose to connect with yourself, you are performing a revolutionary act that transforms the collective consciousness. It may not be visible right away, but it is felt. In the air, in the words, in the energy you leave when you enter a room. If you've come this far, it's because something inside you is ready to remember, to say yes, to open to the mystery, to stop running from the power that has always been within you. You no longer need to keep searching for answers outside. You are the temple. You are the channel. You are the fire. You are the water. You are the medicine. You are the daughter of the moon, the granddaughter of the earth, the voice of your ancestors, the seed of the future. You are here to awaken, to ignite, to hold, and to guide. Not as someone who knows everything, but as someone who is willing to listen to what her soul already knows. Now that you know these 7 secrets, start putting them into practice little by little. You don't need to do it all at once. You only need to begin. Observe your cycles. Listen to your body. Make space for your emotions. Create your own rituals. Dwell in your silence. Celebrate your pleasure. Heal your lineage. Speak with the moon. It is your path, your rhythm, your truth. There is no one right way to do it. There is your way. And that is the most powerful way there is. If this video resonated with you, if it awakened something inside you, if you felt it speaking directly to your heart, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with another woman who needs to remember her power. May this message keep expanding. May it reach more hearts. May it touch more souls. Because when one awakens, many awaken. Thank you for making it this far. Thank you for allowing yourself this journey. Thank you for existing. I embrace you, I honor you, and I await you in the next video. And if you'd like to receive a special shout out in our next post, comment the word "I am reborn." That way, I'll know you were one of the brave ones who stayed until the end, ready to ignite your light from the deepest place. See you soon, beautiful soul. May your path be lunar, wise and true.